She was just a young Brazilian woman, simple and full of small, beautiful dreams, who never imagined her life could turn into a nightmare so quickly. Pregnant, abandoned at the bus station with torn bags, a broken heart, and a baby in her womb crying for safety. But fate has strange ways of changing everything, because at that moment when she thought there was no more hope, a black, expensive car, polished like a mirror, stopped right in front of her. The window rolled down. A serious, handsome man in an impeccable suit, with dark eyes and a cold expression, stared at her for a long second before saying the words that would change her life forever. "Get in the car." Before we start, tell me in the comments what city or country you're listening to this story from. I love to know where you're all listening from. Also, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a like, because this story will keep you hooked until the end. Now, take a deep breath and come with me. Clarice could taste the salt in her mouth. She was crying without even realizing it, her sobs catching in her chest. The uncomfortable bench at the Ribeirão Preto bus station felt like a throne of thorns for someone 6 months pregnant with nowhere to go. Her torn bags at her feet held only old clothes, a crumpled ultrasound picture, and a pack of crackers. The baby's father had left as soon as he found out. A cold note saying, "I'm not ready for this," was left on the sink in the kitchen they had shared for only 3 months. And her family, she didn't even want to think about it. Her sick mother was living with her aunt in a shack on the hill. Her stepfather had been gone for years. There was no one to call, no one to beg. There was only that hard bench, the sound of the microphone announcing buses to São Paulo, Curitiba, Goiânia, as if the whole world had somewhere to go but her. The bus station guard was already looking at her from the corner of his eye, bothered by her prolonged presence. It was raining outside. The water hit the ground like nervous fingers tapping a warning. Clarice sighed deeply, shoved the ultrasound back into her torn bag, and tried to get comfortable. Her back ached. The baby moved. She whispered, "It's okay, my love. Mommy will figure it out." But she wasn't sure she believed it. That's when she decided to go outside for some air. She walked through the glass door, dragging her suitcase with the broken wheel. The rain soaked her. Immediately, she had no umbrella, just the thin scarf she had tied on her head. Her tears were now mixing with the cold water. On the side street next to the bus station, cars drove slowly because of the puddles. Clarice leaned against a pillar and tried to think. She needed to call someone, but who? Her phone had no credit, not even to text for help. And that's when she saw it. A black car with dark windows slowly pulled up in front of her. The engine turned off. Clarice swallowed hard. Maybe it was someone asking for directions, or worse, a drunk person looking to bother her. She lowered her eyes in fear, but the window rolled down with a low whir. The man who appeared was young, maybe around 35, with light brown skin, carefully styled dark hair, and a hint of stubble in a stylish way. But what was most striking were his intense, cold black eyes. He wore a suit, a light-colored shirt, and a dark grey tie. He observed her for an instant so long that Clarice felt exposed. "Raced," he said in a firm, deep voice. "Get in the car." Clarice's eyes widened. She didn't move. She didn't understand. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you pregnant? Alone in the rain. Get in." She shook her head. "I don't know who you are, sir." He sighed impatiently. He rolled the window down further. "My name is Renato Andrade. I am the CEO of Andrade R. I'm not a criminal. I'm offering to help. Get in the car." Clarice tried to swallow her fear. She knew the name Andrade Holdings. Who didn't? A conglomerate of farms, construction companies, and commerce. Stories in the newspaper. He was serious, but she trembled. What if he was crazy, a maniac? He sighed again, like someone losing patience with a child. Do you really want to stay out here in the rain? The baby will get sick. You will get sick. Or do you want to get in the car and at least have a hot coffee? The baby kicked. Clarice felt a slight cramp. Her legs felt weak. She looked around. No other soul on the street. No bus for hours. She made her decision. She gripped the handle of her suitcase tightly. Okay. He unlocked the door. She opened it slowly and slid onto the soft seat, breathing in the pleasant smell of leather and masculine cologne. She put the suitcase on her lap. Renato looked at her, evaluating her. "You're trembling." She bit her lip, trying to stop herself from crying. "I'm fine." He didn't respond. He started the car. The engine roared low. They drove slowly away from the bus station. Inside the car, an awkward silence. The rain beat on the roof like anxious fingers drumming. Clarice looked at the illuminated dashboard, not knowing what to say. Renato broke the silence first. "How many months?" She took a moment to understand. 6. He glanced at her quickly before turning his eyes back to the road. "Does the father know?" The tears returned. She tried to wipe them away with her damp scarf. "He left. He said he didn't want this." Then he cleared his throat. Renato didn't say anything. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Clarice felt a sob escape. "No." Silence. The car entered a wider avenue with beautiful lights reflecting on the wet pavement. He spoke quietly. "Family?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "My mother is sick. I don't have money to help her. I was trying to find work, but no one wants to hire a pregnant woman. I was going to try São Paulo, but I don't even have bus fare anymore." Renato gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. She continued in a whisper. "I was just going to sleep at the bus station tonight until I decided what to do." Renato took a deep, heavy breath. "Unacceptable." Clarice looked at him in surprise. He seemed angry, but not with her. He turned the wheel sharply and entered another street. "Where are we going?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "To a hotel. You need to take a shower, eat, rest, and tomorrow we'll decide what to do." Her eyes widened. "A hotel? I can't pay." He didn't even look at her. "I didn't ask if you could." She swallowed hard. "I can't pay later either." He took an irritated breath. "I didn't say, I want you to pay. You're pregnant. You need help. I can afford it. You're going to accept." Clarice trembled. It all seemed unreal. He parked in front of a hotel that was too fancy for her to even dream of entering. An employee with an umbrella ran to the door. Renato got out first, spoke quietly with the man, who immediately opened her door. Clarice got out slowly, embarrassed, wet, disheveled, holding her torn suitcase. The employee didn't even look at her strangely. He just held the umbrella for her. Renato lightly held her elbow, guiding her inside. The lobby was all lit in gold, with a gleaming floor and an expensive perfume lingering in the air. She felt like a beggar there. At the front desk, Renato spoke with the woman at the counter, asking for a suite. The woman looked at him with respect, calling him Mr. Andrade. Clarice swallowed her shame like she was swallowing a thorn. When they went up in the elevator, she was trembling. Inside the suite, he pointed to the bathroom. "Go, hot shower, clean towels. I'll order some food." She didn't move. He raised an eyebrow. "Go." She obeyed. In the bathroom, she cried a little more, sitting on the cold floor. Then she took the longest shower of her life, trying to understand what was happening. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, her old suitcase next. To her, he was leaning against the bedroom wall, looking at his phone. On the table were trays of soup, bread, and hot tea. He looked at her. "Put on the robe. Eat." She didn't argue. She obeyed, sat down, and starving, devoured half the soup in silence. He watched her. At one point, he cleared his throat. "Do you plan on giving this baby up?" She froze. Her heart went cold. What? Renato frowned. Sorry, bad question, but I needed to know, to help you. Clarice shook her head, her eyes full of tears. He's my son. I'm not giving him up. He looked at her for a long time, then softened. Okay. Clarice sniffled. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. He pressed his lips together. Because someone needs it, and I can. She didn't answer, she just cried a little more. He stayed in silence, respectful. That would be the first night of many changes. Because in that expensive hotel room, two such distant destinies met, and nothing would ever be the same again. Continue so. Clarice woke up with a start to the low sound of the phone in the room. For a second, she forgot where she was, who she was, what she was doing there. She felt the baby move in her belly, its weight reminding her of everything. She remembered the smell of the car's expensive leather, Renato's cold but firm gaze, the marble bathroom that felt like a dream, the hot soup that still burned in her throat like a hug she didn't want to accept. She opened her eyes slowly and saw the white ceiling, diffused light from the lamp. The phone stopped ringing. She took a deep breath, trying to convince herself that she was no longer at the wet bus station, no longer exposed to the cold wind, no longer crying alone, afraid of losing everything before she even had anything. She tried to get up, but the weight in her belly protested. She sat up slowly, adjusting the soft robe around her body. She smelled the expensive soap on her arm. It felt strange to be clean after days of buses, station bathrooms, and shame. She ran a hand over her face, feeling her skin warm from crying so much. She didn't know what to do now. Her torn suitcase was next to the bed, and on top of it, the crumpled ultrasound picture. She picked up the paper and smoothed it carefully. She looked at that grey spot that was her baby. The tears came uninvited. She whispered so low no one would hear, even if they tried. I'm sorry, my love. Mommy doesn't know what to do, but I promise. I promise I won't leave you. The bedroom door opened slowly, and she looked up with a start. Renato was standing there without knocking, his tie loose around his neck and his phone in his hand. He stared at her for a second and then came in, closing the door behind him. You slept for a long time, she tried to explain, embarrassed. I didn't mean to. He raised a hand to silence her. You needed to sleep, don't apologize. Clarice's hands were trembling over the ultrasound picture. Renato approached, slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. He looked at the ultrasound, then at her face. What's his name? Clarice blinked in surprise. I haven't chosen yet. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. He nodded without judgment. Are you planning to get prenatal care? She almost laughed, but it was a humorless sound. How? With what money? Renato took a deep breath, a muscle in his jaw pulsing. That won't be a problem anymore. Clarice's eyes widened. What do you mean? He sat down in a leather armchair next to the bed, crossing his legs effortlessly. I made an appointment for you today with my trusted doctor. He's an obstetrician. He'll see you at no cost. Clarice shook her head, frightened. No, I can't accept that. Renato raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Do you think I'm going to drop you back off at the bus station? She tried to argue. You don't know me. He didn't back down. And you don't know me either, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that there's a child here, and I won't allow them to be mistreated before they're even born. Clarice felt her face flush, a painful mix of shame, anger, and gratitude. The tears returned. She wiped them away with the back of her hand, angry at herself. Why? She asked in a whisper. Why do you care? Renato was silent for a long time. His dark eyes seemed deeper, older. Because I know what it's like to grow up with nothing, with no one. She stared at him in surprise. He looked away, uncomfortable. Go take another shower. I put some clean clothes for you in the closet. They're mine, but they'll do. Then we'll go down for coffee. Clarice shook her head. I can't go like this, all bloated and strange. He stood up, imposing. You're pregnant, not strange. And no one will look at you sideways, I guarantee it. She took a deep breath, trying not to cry again. She carefully picked up the ultrasound, pressing it against her chest. I don't know how to thank you. Renato looked at her firmly. You don't need to thank me. Just promise me you'll take care of this baby. Clarice bit her lip, emotional. I promise. He turned to leave, stopping at the door. I'll wait for you downstairs. You have 15 minutes. She watched him leave, feeling a different kind of tightness in her chest. He was cold, bossy, but there was something in his eyes. An old pain, maybe, or just a contained anger at the world. Clarice took a deep breath, went to the bathroom, and turned on the shower. The hot water made her feel alive again. Then she put on an oversized dress shirt of his. She tied the belt of the robe over it, improvising a dress. She looked at herself in the mirror and gave a half-sad smile. She still looked like a fugitive, but she smelled of expensive soap, and the baby was safe. She left the room and took the elevator, afraid the hotel manager would kick her out for not having money, but everyone seemed to be instructed to respect her. When the doors opened in the lobby, she saw Renato, sitting in an armchair, reading something on his phone. He looked up and assessed her. He didn't smile, but he nodded. Better. Let's go eat. He led her to the hotel restaurant. Clarice felt like a fish out of water with the elegant tables, the steaming coffee, the smell of fresh bread. The waiters treated her with exaggerated kindness. Renato sat across from her and ordered coffee with milk, fruit, and bread. She tried to refuse. He ignored her. You're going to eat. She obeyed. She was starving. After a few minutes of silence, he said, After coffee, we'll go to the doctor. After that, we'll talk about where you'll stay. Clarice frowned. Where I'll stay? Renato looked up, his eyes cold. Do you really think I'm going to drop you back at the bus station? She swallowed hard. I don't want to be a bother. He rested his elbows on the table, his fingers intertwined. It's not a bother. It's a responsibility. She looked at him, confused. Whose responsibility? He sighed. The responsibility of someone who can help. Clarice didn't know what to feel anymore. Gratitude, fear, suspicion. But the baby moved and she remembered she couldn't afford to refuse. When they finished eating, he led her to the car again. The drive to the clinic was silent, only the sound of the light rain on the windows. Renato spoke on his phone in a low voice about business. She heard words like contract, hearings, farm. He really was a rich man, a CEO. And there she was, with her torn suitcase and the crumpled ultrasound on the passenger seat. When they arrived at the clinic, Renato helped her get out. The doctor greeted them with respect, without unnecessary questions. Clarice had exams, heard the baby's heartbeat, and cried again. Renato waited outside, then paid for everything at the counter without looking at the amount. In the car, he simply said, He's fine. You are too, but you need rest, decent food, and regular checkups. She whispered was barely audible, so quietly he didn't answer, just drove in silence. When she thought he would leave her at a shelter, he said, You're going to stay in one of my empty apartments. There's one downtown. Clarice's eyes widened. I can't. Renato gripped the steering wheel. You can and you will. I'll send an employee to help you with shopping and cleaning. You just need to rest. She started to cry again. I don't know how to pay. He turned his face to her at a stoplight, his eyes hard, yet strangely kind. You won't pay. Consider it an investment. She swallowed hard. In what? He answered without hesitation. In doing what I couldn't do for someone I loved. She wanted to ask more, but the tears stopped her. The rest of the way was just the sound of the engine, her contained crying, and a silent promise that this would be the first night she would sleep without fear. The apartment was in a tall building downtown, with a doorman in a suit and a red carpet at the entrance. A place Clarice never thought she would step foot in. She got out of the car holding her torn suitcase like it was a treasure, with Renato by her side, imposing, serious, his steps firm on the marble floor. The doorman greeted him respectfully, calling him Mr. Andrade. He only replied with a brief nod, and then motioned with his chin for her to go in first. Clarice felt small, invisible, ashamed of every wet strand of hair, every torn seam on her suitcase, but she walked. The elevator went up in heavy silence. Renato said nothing. She tried to breathe without sobbing, feeling the baby kick as if to say it was awake too, curious, scared. On the 8th floor, the doors opened to a wide corridor with light-colored walls and the smell of cleanliness. Renato took a key from his suit jacket pocket and opened the door. He went in first, turning on the lights. Clarice stopped at the doorway, not having the courage to step inside. It was bigger than any house she had ever lived in. A huge grey sofa, light-colored cushions, a soft rug, a perfect open kitchen, a stone counter, a dining table for 6. Everything matched, everything shone. "Come on," he said impatiently. She entered, trembling, the sound of the suitcase's broken wheel on the smooth floor. Renato looked around as if inspecting. "Everything is fine. The employee is coming this afternoon to clean more, bring food, buy what you need. You're going to stay here." Clarice shook her head, desperate. "No, I can't. It's too much. I've never—" He raised his hand. "Don't start. You're no longer going to sleep at a bus station or go hungry or be exposed to bad people." "But I'm nothing to you," she whimpered, her voice cracking. "You don't owe me anything." Renato stared at her, his dark eyes hard. "Maybe I do." She shivered, not understanding. He took a deep breath, running a hand through the back of his hair. "You'll stay here until the baby is born. You'll have a doctor, food, clean clothes. After that, we'll see." Clarice's heart squeezed. "After?" He didn't answer right away. "After you decide what you're going to do. If you want to leave, if you want to stay in the city, I'll help you have a choice." She broke down. She cried so much she couldn't speak anymore. Renato did nothing to comfort her, just stood there looking serious until she calmed down from sheer exhaustion. "I'm going to work now," he said. "I left my contacts on the table. If there's any problem, call me. The employee's name is Rosa. She'll be here in about 2 hours." Clarice sniffled, her voice failing. "Aren't you afraid I'll steal something?" Renato raised an eyebrow. "Steal what?" "The cushions." She sniffled louder, embarrassed. He turned to the door, stopping before he left. "You don't have to trust me, but I'll ask you to trust, at least my interest in keeping you and this child alive. That's all." She couldn't respond. He left, and the door closed with a soft click. Clarice slid to the floor, hugging her suitcase. The silence of the apartment swallowed her, the smell of cleanliness, the impeccable furniture. Everything screamed, "You don't belong here." The baby kicked, and she whispered in a hoarse voice, "Mommy will figure it out." Yes, she will. The afternoon passed slowly. She explored the apartment, afraid of breaking something. She opened the drawers slowly. There was nothing personal there. It looked like a magazine set designed to impress visitors. An empty refrigerator, perfect cabinets. The bathroom had plush towels, expensive soap, and thick glass shampoo bottles. She cried again just seeing it. When the doorbell rang, she nearly jumped back in surprise. She opened it slowly. Rosa was a woman in her 50s, with her hair in a bun and a clean uniform. She smiled sweetly. "You must be Ms. Clarice." Clarice blinked. No one called her Ms. I'm just Clarice." Rosa came in without ceremony, putting her bags on the counter. "Dr. Renato told me. I brought some things." Clarice tried to stop her. "I can't pay." Rosa didn't care. "He'll pay." She took rice, beans, meat, fruits, milk, packages of diapers and wet wipes out of the bag. Clarice looked at it all, feeling dizzy. "This is too much." Rosa smiled. "He wanted me to buy double, but I thought we didn't need that much today. I'll restock next week." Clarice sat down, trembling. Rosa went to her, took her hand. "Honey, he doesn't do this out of malice. He just doesn't know how to be gentle." Clarice swallowed her tears. "Why does he do this?" Rosa sighed, wiping the counter with a cloth. "I'm not sure, but I know he's not bad. The boss has his own demons." Clarice didn't press for more. She watched Rosa organize everything. She listened to advice about heating milk and eating fruit. Rosa didn't treat her like a poor thing or a burden, just like a person. When Rosa left, the apartment felt less threatening. Clarice lay down on the sofa, exhausted. She woke up hours later to the sound of the intercom. It was Renato. "I'm coming up." She jumped up, fixed her hair, and pulled the borrowed shirt over her belly. He came in without ceremony, carrying a paper bag. "Dinner." She tried to speak, but he ignored her, placing the bag on the table. He took out takeout containers from an expensive restaurant. "Eat." Clarice whimpered. "I can't pay for this." He didn't even look at her. "I didn't ask you to pay. Eat." She sat down slowly. The smell was delicious. Chicken, rice, vegetables. He opened a bottle of mineral water and pushed it towards her. "Cheers." This time she obeyed. He leaned against the counter, watching in silence. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with a napkin, not daring to look up. He spoke softly. "The doctor is coming here tomorrow. Prenatal checkup." She took a deep breath. "I don't know how to thank you." Renato shifted impatiently. "I don't want thanks. I want you to take care of yourself." She sniffled. "I'll try." He nodded. "Good. I'm leaving. I'll be back after work tomorrow." She looked up, startled. "You're coming back?" He stopped at the door. "Until you understand that you're not alone." She started crying again, alone on the sofa. When he left, he locked the door. She stared at the ceiling, whispering to her belly. "He's strange, isn't he? But I think he wants to help." The baby kicked. Clarice smiled, a mix of fear and relief. She fell asleep on the sofa, hugging a soft cushion, with the sound of the city in the background like a lullaby she never thought she'd have.